All right, light him if you got him, baby. Jonathan Fibonojji, live from Man on Mountain. Good morning, Man on Mountain. Love, Robin Williams. There you go. Here you go. Super important Fibonojji. You know how my editing skills can kind of be all like, okay, so here you go. Jonathan Fibonojji, live from Man on Mountain, talking about some important shit. Stuff that's going to make your life, well, you tell me. All right, so here you go. Public spaces. What the fuck is a public space? And when will the DA, you're like, Jonathan Fibonojji says camp here again, and this will have, okay, so homelessness. They signed, I liked how they tore my tent down, and they signed it, the law-abiding citizens of Durango. There you go, Jonathan Fibonojji, public spaces, homelessness, you know the drill. Always trying to save the world. I think it's interesting that the same place, there you go, the same piece of paper, that's some fucking terrorists. I want this charged as like a federal hate crime. I mean, technically, well, we'll talk about that later. It says, camp here again. Somebody tore my fucking tent down. They wrote me a hate note. It says, camp here again. And they signed it, law-abiding citizens of Durango. And I think it's interesting that they did it on my job fair, you know, and how homelessness is really just unemployment, and how poverty is becoming illegal. Like Jonathan Fibonojji. Boom, here you go. I saw this. This is a local radio DJ. Maybe I could go work for them. Here you go. Trying to hold my mic still, and I saw this. Here you go. April 25th, 5:30. No experience necessary. Be a radio DJ. Jonathan Fibonojji talks about homelessness in Durango, and then eventually he's going to go saucy. So here you go, public spaces, and why they're so fucking important. Now look at this. Look at this. This is La Plata, baby. How they're making homelessness or poverty illegal. And that's a really big deal. Look at they're saying no contact with the soup kitchen. Well, you know, getting thrown out of a soup kitchen, and how is that possible with public spaces? And how federally protected statuses are being assassinated left and right. They even filed a fucking restraining order against me. Look at that. LLC, baby. There you go, JMS. There's my legal name. They amended it. Here you go, John. There you go. There's my whole name. Boom. This shit's really happening. February 7th. Being thrown out of a food kitchen. How is that possible? What happened? So I was applying for a job somewhere else. Once that somewhere else place found out that I was homeless or camping out here in La Plata County, which is a public space. It's a free world. Jonathan Fibonojji says it's a free world. Well, it's at least a free country. And public spaces are important. And how literally, you know, soup kitchens, LLCs, and, you know, kind of the underbelly of LLCs, how a lot of times these organizations are started well, but then they kind of move into like a corporate world and, well, public spaces. And how is it possible that a human being can be thrown out of a soup kitchen? Now, remember, the Sixth Amendment of the United States Constitution guarantees people the right to address accusations and to move about freely and to pursue happiness. I mean, we have constitutional rights. And I know there's you know, when you start thinking about federally protected statuses, you start talking about homelessness and public spaces, you know, a lot of times people like, that's the last thing people want to really talk about. But then, for whom the bell tolls, and all the shit that, you know, Jonathan Fibonojji's going through, really because of poverty. And how the only thing that makes me different is that I've decided to document the journey. So that when people have opinions on homelessness, a lot of times those opinions aren't really based in reality. They're based upon, you know, a person who's sitting in a home in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, or 2-car garage, and they're not homeless. And one thing you have to know about homelessness is that to really understand anything, you have to go through it. And how people are being thrown out of public spaces. And that's a very big deal. But most importantly, that's a legal deal. and how even a Mana LLC will throw Fibonojjis out. Well, where do people go? Well, that's usually where crime begins. Well, Jesus has fed the raven. I mean, Jonathan Fibonojji, I mean, Jesus feeds his ravens. But I want to show you the legal side of homelessness out here in La Plata County and how they're building camps, like literally Japanese internment camps, and how we need to start talking about important shit again. And what's a cake judge? Well, I ran into my own cake judge. I got another restraining order. Well, here, let me show you. I think it's from the library, and how that's where I go to simply look for work. Getting thrown out of soup kitchens and libraries, and a restraining order and federally protected statuses. These things are important. And who's having these conversations? Because what's happening in La Plata County is happening in your neck of the woods. I mean, whether you're in Sausalito, San Francisco, I'm from Oklahoma City. Whether you're from Purcell, Oklahoma, Duncan, Oklahoma, that's where I'm really from. Duncan, Oklahoma, 1821. That's my old home address. But what's happening out here in La Plata County is happening in your neck of the woods. Law enforcement are using trespassing charges to throw people, well, poor people out of public spaces, and how restraining orders are given at whim to anything, you know, with any accusations, and how the Sixth Amendment of the ability to entertain accusations in a court of law with a jury, how those things and those basic rights and liberties, how we're losing those. And that's a very important discussion, because for whom the bell tolls. Because when we start making homelessness, or when we start making poverty illegal, for whom the bell tolls, look up that poem. And I think that poem is more relevant now than ever. And how public spaces, whether it's in Durango or Sausalito, San Francisco, Los Angeles, La Plata, Stevens County, Bailey County, Travis County in Texas, the police do play a role in homelessness. And how most homeless men, we can have our tents destroyed, we could be kicked out of public spaces. I mean, literally, I want that charged as a public hate crime or a federal hate crime, because, you know, I love Jesus, and Jesus says, feed my sheep. And when I first went homeless, I wrote Jesus all over my first, or I think it was my second tent. And somebody was offended by that. They did this. They signed it, law-abiding citizens of Durango. Well, I want the local DA to at least charge that. And how men don't get, well, the police do not protect and serve men. And how even, you know, whether you're talking about in a custody dispute, most of the time when men, when a woman wants to violate a man's custody, most of the time the police don't even enforce those laws. And how men lose families, again, because police say that, you know, they don't get involved in civil matters. But when it comes to women, they get police escorts. And what is a cake judge? And how even, you know, allegations against men, when proven false, need to be, you know, like, well, just recently, let me show you my paperwork. I got another restraining order. Is it from the library? Look at this. These are the same police. Look, this is me getting thrown out of the library. And how libraries and I called this woman, Colleen, a cunt. I made a video about that. And how, you know, again, you know, I just didn't want my bike getting stolen, and there have been several times that the crime has been levied against me, whether it's, you know, theft or, you know, there was, let me just say right now there's 9, just going to keep going. Like right now in La Plata County, the DA has 9 crimes that have been levied against me, whether it's been theft, attempted assault, the theft of my bike. And one day I just didn't want to lose my bike. So I went to the library. I took my bike into the library. in like the atrium. And Colleen said, well, you got to take your bike out. I said, well, you know, I don't have a lock because, you know, it got stolen. And then I finally found it myself because the police didn't want to help me find my bike. She's like, you know, Mr. Spears, you got to take your bike out of the atrium. I said, well, you know, go ahead and call the cops if you want. And she did. And she later told me that if I had the law says that if I had a horse, I could have taken the horse into the library. Believe it or not, that's a law. If you have a miniature horse, you can take that in the library. She told me that. But if you take a little bike into, or you know, into the atrium, then that's illegal. And I said, Colleen, that's ridiculous. I don't want to lose my bike. The police don't enforce laws when crime is levied against men. And Colleen threw me out. This is in Durango, Colorado. And then, of course, Judge Casey here in Durango threw that case out because he agreed with me that it is a public space. And, you know, it didn't warrant the charge. And so he threw that out. Well, now I have a restraining order against the library because of a person who works there. Because that person has filed a physical assault allegation against me. And it's just retaliation for what I said against Colleen. And again, a lot of times people don't care about homeless battles or homeless trials. They certainly don't care about, you know, the, well, let me just say this, like whenever you, as a comic, whenever I observe, whenever I go into a comedy store, there's almost 3 jokes you're just guaranteed to hear. You're going to hear a dick joke, you're going to hear a pedophile joke, and you're going to hear a homeless joke. And usually the joke about homelessness is some comic is joking about levying violence against a homeless person. And I don't know why in America we love to laugh at homeless people, or how we find abusing homeless people enjoyable. I don't know why in America that trilogy is almost guaranteed in every comedian's set. I don't know why. But homelessness matters because when the law doesn't serve and protect men, when the law doesn't serve and protect a man's property or man's you know, physical self, when there's an entire class of people that are not represented and in fact abused and thrown out of public spaces, the new nigga, as I like to say it. And what's happening is white men are starting to experience the racism that the black man had been going through for 200 years, 300, 500 years. And how public spaces are really, really important. And how homelessness is the next for whom the bell tolls. And I hope this journey, however random and however, you know, imperfect, I hope if anything I could do on this channel is to help raise awareness of the real homeless battle from a legal aspect. And this is why I'm going to sue the fuck out of the city. And this is why I'm going to sue the city for $58 million. Because there's a movie I saw once, Munich, directed by the legendary Steven Spielberg. And there's a great quote by Golda Mier where she says, "Nobody cares about dead Jews." And it's a great line in this movie. Golda Meir says, "Nobody cares about dead Jews." Go watch Munich. Well, I know nobody cares about homeless people. I mean, I've literally have had friends tell me, "I don't care that you're homeless. I don't care that you didn't have blankets. I don't care that Manna Soup Kitchen throws out elderly women that they don't like in the middle of winter." Or a Fibonojji. I mean, how many times do people get thrown out of Manna without a hearing? Where they're not throwing people out of Manna, they're throwing people out of food. And yes, this winter we didn't get a lot of snow, but we got a fuckload of cold. And how I watched an elderly woman try to, you know, like with me, you know, she and I tried to, you know, she would tell me, "Hey, we'll go over here and get some food," or, you know, she would give me $5 one day and I'd give her some gloves the next. You know, when you go homeless in La Plata and you see society and you see laws that are, well, that's where the passion comes from. And I realize that a lot of people won't share my passion for homeless people. But I know that people, I know cities care about one thing, and I know people care about one thing, and that's mammon. They care about money. And so I'm going to sue the fuck out of the city. I'm going to create a model so that other people, other Fibonojjis, don't get thrown out of Starbucks, or they don't get thrown out of a soup kitchen or a library in which they're trying to find employment. And how public spaces, more than ever, are so, so important. Public spaces. It's the next major legal discussion we're going to have. In my opinion, the abortion discussion is still relevant, but I think it's past. I think the next discussion that's really going to be kind of sociologically, well, I think it's the next abortion discussion, and it's going to be public spaces. And in fact, just Google just what happened in Starbucks, where two men were just, because they didn't have money, they were escorted out of a public space. And the legendary comic Kevin Hart, you know, he tweeted, he's like, hey, Philadelphia, make this right. Well, thank you, Kevin Hart, because, you know, whether he's a Fibonacci or not, and I consider, you know, Kevin Hart an amazing comic, but also a brother, a person who really cares about people. Kevin Hart was using his fame to say, hey, you can't throw brothers out of a public space who just simply are sitting there. And that's the Manna Soup Kitchen. That's the discussion that I want to have. So thank you for taking this journey with me. If you have any questions, email me, americano417 at gmail.com, just like the coffee, americano417 at gmail.com. Yeah, I'll tell you some jokes, but I also want to heal this fucking country. And I want my story to hopefully do more of that. Jesus says, feed my sheep. Feed my sheep. Thank you for taking this journey with me.